Sally, thanks ever so much. And well, it's probably appropriate to say a very warm welcome because it's certainly a hotter day and feels like the hottest day of the year so far. I'm Jeremy Porteous. I run the Housing Learning Improvement Network, and I'm delighted that all our presenters have been able to join us this afternoon for this really interesting session, as well as all those of you who are participating in the delegates room. And I'm sure you're in for a treat. As Sally said, this is our happy hour session. We are going to be over the next hour, have a presentation and a conversation really, to really understand issues around how tech is really being transformed within housing and the implications for that across the housing with care sector. But before I pass over to our two excellent speakers, what they may not know is that many years ago, when I used to run the Department of Health Extra Care Housing Fund, one of the first schemes that attracted any capital grant programme from the Department of Health was Trailway Court and Blandford Forum. So we've got very good links with Aster and colleagues that go back several years. And then more recently, through Julia and the team at C&C, built up a really fantastic relationship looking at issues in relation to housing for older adults in particular, although I know, Julia, you at C&C do far more than that. And over several years now, we've been sort of promoting and supporting a lot of really innovative ways that both organisations are adopting, both through technology, but also really important services to enable their older adults and service users to really have a better quality of life across a range of their schemes. So I'm really pleased that both Julia and Dawn are with us this afternoon. They're going to talk a little bit more about the merger and the tech solutions that sort of driven that. If you don't know, Julia is the Managing Director of Central and Cecil, or C&C, and a leading organisation across London, particularly in London around over 55s. And Dawn is the Chief Strategy Officer at Aster Group, and I'm really delighted that you've both joined us. So I'm going to hand over to Julia, and I know, Adam, behind the scenes, that's your cue too. So over to you, Julia.
Thank you very much indeed, Jeremy. Hi, Adam. While you're getting the slides up, just wanted to say a massive welcome to everybody who's joined the call today. Thank you for being here and taking time to listen to us. Some of you may know me. My name's Julia Ashley, and as Jeremy has said, that I'm the now Managing Director of C&C based in London. But actually working across the Aster Group as lead for the services for our ageing population. I'll talk a bit about that a bit later. I've actually been with C&C for 14 years and was previously Chief Executive for 5 years, which was a massive privilege. And thank you for inviting us to be here, Jeremy. It's really good to be able to come and talk about how we can come together with Aster just to be able to do more, which we'll talk about in a minute, and pass over to Dawn.
Yeah, thanks, Julia, and thanks everyone for joining us today. It's really quite exciting to be invited to be involved in the happy hour, not something that I've done before, so hopefully it'll be a good discussion. I'm Dawn Fowler-Stevens. As Jeremy said, I'm Chief Strategy Officer at Aster Group. I've been with Aster Group for 10 years now, but I got I suppose my connection with Aster was prior to that as part of a previous merger. So yeah, kind of been associated with Aster for quite some years now. Yeah, I'm just going to pass you back over to Julia and we'll kick off if that's okay.
Great, thanks, Dawn. So yeah, so Aster and C&C, two very different organisations, both really passionate about the agenda for ageing, and we will talk a bit about that a bit later. So yeah, we came together in January 2022, so not long now, just a few weeks ago, and we're really looking forward to doing some great things in this space and making sure that people who live in our schemes and actually work with us as well have a really good quality of life as they age, or if they need more from their housing provider or service provider. I just thought it'd be really interesting as well to mention that Aster also merged in with East Borough Housing Trust back in 2020. A very different organisation again, but one that's really focused on housing care and support down in Dorset. And it's just been fantastic to work alongside Aster colleagues and people in East Borough. We all bring something slightly different, but actually something really special to the table, and together definitely more. And I think it was just really good to say that actually, you know, one of the drivers here, C&C and East Borough, I think both limited by their size and ability to scale up to the huge ambition within both organisations. And Aster is a bigger organisation, really focused on doing great homes, shared ownership, got a lovely connected living service, which is providing some really helpful tech for lots of people, and can do lots more by us working together. And Aster's strapline is that everyone has a home, and I think through this wanted to make sure that they were meeting the needs of the ageing agenda with much more focus. So actually we're going to take you through that journey and how we've come together to be able to achieve that. Next slide, Adam. Thank you. So I guess useful just to think about how we made the decision to want to merge with somebody in the first place, and then you know, a bit later on we'll talk about why Aster. I think as a business, you know, we're small but with this huge ambition and doing some quite complex work right through from housing, technology, residential care, and all of the things that you can read for yourself on the slide here are all massive for a smaller organisation, and I think none less massive than the COVID 2 years of the pandemic. But actually that's much more than that, isn't it? It's all the being able to really forge forward with the ageing population needs, and the sort of level of unprecedented change that is being asked of us. So for us, we have in London a number of very large schemes that were all built in a very innovative period together back in the 60s, 70s, that need altogether lots of work done on them. So lots of focus on fire and building safety, and then the net carbon neutral goals. So a huge amount to think about, and opportunities as well. So we've got opportunities absolutely within the social care white paper. We're absolutely thrilled to see housing being placed front and centre of that agenda. And we wanted to meet that ambition whilst being able to meet what was being asked of us in lots of other ways. And we've got the levelling up agenda, which is absolutely key. And of course, what we didn't realise when we actually took steps to merge was that we were going to have to be watching from afar the war in Ukraine, which I know is upsetting all of us at the moment, but actually that significant impact that's coming through there, and none less so for our residents around the energy crisis. So it's just fantastic to be able to work together in a collaborative way with a bigger organisation that can help us to forge our way through that. So Dawn, you know, we worked together really closely, didn't we, on this? I think, you know, we ended up being introduced to each other right at the time where C&C were looking for a merger partner, and I think it was so clear. I mean, it was clear to me, Dawn, that we got on really well from get-go. How did that feel for you?
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting, isn't it? Because you touched on, just on the previous slide, you were talking about pandemic as one of the pressures that we've had, and our first communication was very much in the digital space. But I think we were brought together, I suppose, by a third party who absolutely understood our different cultures and the similarities of them, even given the different organisations that we were. But sometimes I think it was that initial conversation, wasn't it? That initial discussion that we had, that we kind of thought together, actually, there's something quite special that we could create here together. I mean, we both had our own, I suppose, drivers in terms of why merge, why now, what's in it. But very much from an Aster perspective, we were looking at, like Julia said, our headline is around a home. Everyone has a home, and you know, how can we do that? How can we help? So with our size, with our capacity, help others that actually, and especially C&C with a strong brand, a good delivery, good customer, response to all the services, just continue to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, one of the things that one of the first conversations I think we started having was around being able to do more by coming together. So the sum being great, you know, the sum being greater than parts, whatever that saying is. But it was about actually being able to do more by coming together. And actually, when we looked at it, we wanted the same things, we're just from a different perspective. So all about that skills and resources, really that focus on impact for our ageing population. We've had some really exciting discussions to kick us off on that. But actually how we can just bring all the best bits of both organisations together to do more.
Yeah, and I think just to jump in there, Julia, I think one of the, I suppose, exciting things was we were both looking at the same transformation that we needed in our businesses, and actually had different paths that we'd gone along, but very complementary in some of the innovative spaces that you'd moved into within C&C, especially with some of the new the new homes that you were doing and the tech that you were putting in there as well, and there were some great learning opportunities for both, I think, that we saw coming through.
Yeah, and that's just carrying on, actually, isn't it?
Yeah.
That actually the more we get to know each other, the more those opportunities are there. So especially around that tech agenda, you know, you've got a really established connected living service, and we've got lots of really established and really innovative things going on. And when you blend those together, actually, you know, it's going to be a really exciting time, I think, to see what comes next. So I think the real trick was around how we built those relationships, I suppose. So C&C's sort of small, niche, London focused, specialist. Aster door much bigger, geographically more dispersed. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, sorry. Yeah, we, you know, that if you look at the two different sizes, you think they were polar opposites, but actually definitely not, you know, in terms of our purpose, what we're all focusing on. And actually that it's complementary, the fact that Aster weren't at that time in the London space, but Julia with C&C very much focused in the London geography. That just lent itself to I suppose more that we could bring together to have those different experiences.
Yeah,
I mean, Aster very much grew in the same way I think that C&C did, through mergers, through organisations coming together. So they very similar paths in an odd way.
Yeah, and it was a sort of aligning of similar paths, and I think that sort of background of growing through merger for both organisations, I think, especially C&C really being the smaller one, just having the confidence that merger can be a really good thing and can help us to think about how we can do more. And for me, I suppose that the really obvious thing, and I think it's a bit like having a personal relationship, isn't it? If your values are aligned, it kind of works, and if they're misaligned, it doesn't. And I think what was really apparent is, you know, from right from the very top, of the organisations, the values and the intent and the purpose was just so aligned. And I think it's how we got that statement around the best of each organisation without fear or favour, which I loved, and sort of became the mantra, Dawn, didn't it, of how we moved forward.
Yeah, very much did. And I think we continue to carry that through the way that we're working and following through integration, and how, you know, the skills that complement both. And I know we're going to touch on that in a bit, but yeah, definitely been the mantra of how the culture that's sat beneath every decision that we've made and what we've got through to getting through to formal merger. And I suppose it was quite a short time frame in terms of, if you think, when did we start having a conversation? It was probably February time last year, and then by January this year we've got to formal legal merger, which is relatively short in a pandemic. A huge amount of stuff being done virtually, but yeah, I remember the very cold meeting where we sat outside in a space in London where we absolutely froze, where we had our first face-to-face.
Yeah, no, that was cold. I remember that was very cold. Yeah. So just moving on to the best, you know, what we meant by the best of each organisation without fear or favour, I think absolutely coming together, the things that we established that we could do that neither organisation could do by staying on their own, was a whopping 700 more homes, and that was the headline. And it's a nominal number. It's the sort of extra financial borrowing capacity, if you like, or development capacity that we created by blending the two organisations together, divided by an average cost of developing a home in London. And that's a big number, you know. Even without that, that's a really big call to do something so positive. The fire safety programme for C&C's ageing stock was reduced down from 7 to 4 years, which is another massive outcome for our residents. And I think this real drive to reframe how we're looking at technology for making sure that people can be as independent as possible at home. But it's everything around it. It's the home itself. It's the employment. It's everything we do, isn't it? That we can start really utilising our joint capability in technology in a different way. That kind of betterment for colleagues as well, about how we could blend the knowledge, passion, expertise. And so we've got C&C colleagues in some of the Aster's operational panels already. We've got colleagues that are on the Aspiring Leaders programme. It's just been really good, and actually our colleagues accessed from day one far better benefits than we were able to provide as a smaller organisation. So that's gone down well. The other thing, I suppose, and the most exciting thing, is that we've now embarked upon the development, if you like, of the new strategic plan for ageing, which we're intending to have in place and approved by September, which is actually quite a big ask. It's a lot to do to get to a new strategic plan by September. But I'm going to talk about some of the initial conversations in a minute, I think. And just having that much bigger voice and influence, and that includes EBHT as well, that joined Aster. And I think combined, we can really push forward on some of the things we're very passionate about, and including the sort of doing something about this sort of ageist society that we've got, and how we can try and dispel some of that, which I'll talk about in a minute.
Yeah, Julia, just coming in on that, and like you were saying about those, you know, those opportunities for our colleagues as well as our customers. But I suppose it was it's just really pulling out that we're not just talking about the plan, what the plan will be around what were C&C's customers. This is actually a plan for what does that plan for ageing population, which we all know is getting bigger and bigger across the whole of the group of Aster, which with the expertise and specialism of C&C, taking that lead on it has been brilliant in terms of knowledge, expertise, which we hadn't fundamentally focused on prior to the two of us coming together.
Yeah, and you know, the startling thing of the demographics in the combined operating area, and actually what's happening and what we need to prepare for, not just about providing homes for people as they age, but it's actually making sure the workforce is ready, available in those areas, and equipped to be able to work on those as well. So that's really, really good.
So I was just going to touch a bit about, you'll see up on the slide here that we're talking about getting the details right. And I think it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because mergers are a very well-trodden path. There's a process to them. There are steps that you need to go through, which is all great, all fine. But none of that can happen. The key part of it is definitely about building those relationships. What was great, and we really listened along the way, I think, from a C&C and Aster perspective to the residents and what it meant to them as well. It was great on one of the largest housing estates from C&C. Our Aster's chief exec and chair went along to visit those residents, to have a discussion, to have some conversations, to hear their voice, to hear those things that were coming through. And I think that was a great thing to do, to be there present. And also then looking at, you know, how can we focus on driving that integration with the central teams as well, and working together as one, and that's been really positive as well. I know a lot of the areas within the directorate that I kind of sit within are very much group functions. So for me, it's been brilliant to see the two come together and work together. I don't know if from your perspective, Julia, around the kind of the pre-merger, I suppose the gateways that we needed to hit to get through and to get to the end of the formal merger, and the relationship, the key part for you, how that felt.
Yeah, I suppose the key thing was that C&C's resident Central London, very engaged with the organisation, have a lot to say, feel very passionate about C&C and where they live, and very sort of a lot of ownership over that. So it was a big ask actually for them to get behind actually supporting this, and you know, it was just brilliant because they got right behind it. I think we had 5% of our residents actually disagreed, and actually just through talking, a lot of people said, oh, all those questions I've got actually have really reassured now, especially because Aster's chair was the housing ombudsman. I think that helped quite a bit in terms of actually building trust, which is the most important thing in these situations, isn't it? Around trust is everything, really.
Yeah, and I think it was that mutual respect. I mean, we touched on that a few times, didn't we?
Yeah,
and you know, having that and actually having an open mind is really, really key, from having a fixed mind when you're having these conversations.
Yeah, and actually that trust sort of has filtered through to enable disagreement, and I think this is a really healthy part of this partnership. There's been many things where we've sort of said, well, I'm not sure about that, or I would have done that differently, and I think, you know, both sides have really worked hard to try and create that psychological safety of being able to debate things and come together with something better than either one of us was coming to the table with, and actually develop those discussions and actually do something with them. And again, it sort of comes back to technology and systems. I know there's a couple of questions in the chat about technology, and I will answer those. I think one of the things that is going to take a while is actually bringing two organisations' complex systems together. We can't rush that, because that's about managing risk and making sure that people can work effectively and that the wheels stay on the bus as we integrate those systems. But we will get there, because we've got some really good people working on it, and we just got to try and free them up and to get on with it, I suppose. And I suppose the other real challenge really was, you know, I think Aster is going through a real agile transformation program. C&C is an agile kind of worker as well. You know, we try and do things and move on quickly. And actually transferring agile into agile, there's sort of pros and cons about it, I suppose. The cons are, it's just a bit more difficult, and actually the thing that you think you've got a handle on is actually just change, because we're trying something new again. But the really good thing is that because of that, we're actually able to come together. There's no fixed mindsets. We're actually be able to start pulling those best bits of the organisation together. So I think that was a really important part of it as well. Should we move on? I guess what people are really interested in is, where is this all going? And we have kicked off the planning for our new strategic plan, the development of our new strategic plan, and just the breadth of expertise and experience from the 3 different organisations coming together, a real coalition, if you like. And it's resulted in some really bold discussions so far, thinking differently, not using our institutional tramlines, if you like, to think about what might be needed. We know that there's a massive demographic need out there. We know all this stuff, and I think some of the discussions we've had are around, let's not just gaze at our navel, let's just know what we know, let's pick up the bits that we want answers to. And there's a massive drive for real creativity and creative thinking here. And we've had some fantastic discussions around the need to challenge ageism before we can do anything, because actually, if you challenge that, then you start thinking differently about services anyway, whether that be housing or technology or products or services or whatever. So this new strategic plan is going to cover our combined customers, our homes and services and technologies, but actually our colleagues as well. So there's a huge drive to create a plan that enables an ageing workforce to stay at work, to be able to be flexible, to manage multiple things that might happen as you age, including looking after your own ageing parents perhaps, or grandchildren, or whatever those things as you age at work. Why on earth people have to leave because of those things? And I think it's just been phenomenal to be part of those discussions of such an ambitious and courageous organisation wanting to tackle that, I suppose. It's been really, really great.
Yeah, I think that was kind of one of the light bulb moments, looking through some of these things, that actually is about our colleagues as well. It's not just our customers, it's our colleagues, it's those different generations of workforce. People are working longer, but they absolutely have different skills. So that's been quite exciting, just thinking through what can a workforce look like in the future, and what skills do you want from different parts of it. So it's been a great conversation.
Yeah, and there's a sort of strand about communities, and the discussions about using all available resources within communities, including residents, families. We've we've talked about at length about volunteering. Last Friday we had a workshop, and even had sort of grandchild volunteering sort of on the agenda, and it was just lovely to hear all these bold ideas. I suppose maybe that's not so bold, but we just put things in the way and don't tend to have those conversations. So I think just lifting the lid on that is just great. And of course, we've all been talking about whether we need schemes and extra care, or actually whether we just need homes that people can age in communities that are supportive. And I think we haven't landed on that. We probably need both, and residential care. But I think those discussions are really alive at the moment and really ongoing. So much more about need rather than age, and about aging in place, or having your needs met in place, I guess. Can you just move on, Adam, to the next slide? So just to pick up some of the themes that we've explored so far, as I've touched on this passion to drive out ageism. And I think if for any of you who've been engaged with the TAPPI report, I think there was a real focus in that report about consumerizing products, technologies, services for people. So actually it's not something that's been done to you because we're trying to, commission you something or give you something to help you carry on coping when you're not. Actually, we're kind of thinking about things that people would want to have in their home, like we do with Alexa and stuff, like a much more forward-thinking approach to that. And I think that commitment to drive out ageism is providing a different dynamic, and because it cuts across working and homes and services and technology, it's not about old and it's not about age, really. It's just about being a provider to consumers that are discerning that of services, homes and products from us, which just helps people live their best life. And I think, again, that's just going to help us just get to the right place with this. We've had discussions around rapid agile testing, so let's just stop talking and almost this is a co-production approach, but not in its traditional sense where you get people in a room and ask them what they want. We actually just start doing stuff. We do A/B testing. So we just do two things and we evaluate which one was best, and we'll just keep moving on, and actually accept some of those will fail quite fast and we can move on, and others will have legs and we can start to develop and do the next sort of iteration of how we provide services. And in that process is where we do the co-production, because people are really telling us what things are needed, wanted and most useful. Goes without saying, we want to get closer to our partners. None of us can do all of this on our own. We've just got to work together. And that includes the communities. I think there's so much equity in our communities, just phenomenal approach from communities, and we really do need to use that more, which includes residents, and this is just an idea of an alumni network of resident skills, expertise and participation, which is much nicer than it's a much nicer term than the engagement structures, which are almost we're controlling. This is more about them controlling it. So it's an exciting place so far. And if we just move on to the next one, we had lots of discussion about these artificial barriers that we put in, when sometimes as housing associations we just say no because that's just how we do things and that's what our policy dictates. So this is about saying yes instead of no. A good example would be, as you age, you might actually be really helpful for you, but actually for somebody else if you moved home. And you might want to do that at a much earlier stage than when you're in crisis. And our policies tend to say no, because actually that creates a void, which is then going to cost us money to, put right before we can let it. And it'll be a lettings period that, you know, we didn't need to have. But actually there's so many ways to say yes to that. You know, maybe we can empower people to, you know, take on the void themselves, or pay if they want to move earlier. And instead of saying no, we say yes, but these are the ways that you can do that. And it might be that that would be much, much better. Just one example of millions. We've talked about work, I think, and those are just all probably well-known things. But I think one of the discussions we've had is around whether we ask in our satisfaction surveys, in our engagement work, we tend to sort of, I suppose is the question, to ask the questions that we want the answers to, instead of the real questions which our customers and residents are burning for us to be able to ask, so that they can really tell us what's wanted and needed, and hopefully that will come back into that co-production approach. So if we just move on. So yeah, that's just the excitement of everything that we've been doing. And I would say we did dig deep to make the decision to merge with what was a much larger organisation. And this is something that was asked numerous times of us: will you lose your identity by merging with Aster? And actually, when I looked back to our founders back in 1926, she was such an amazing lady, the founder of C&C. You can find on our website if you're interested in the history. It's just a phenomenal story. Absolutely, if it meant she could do more, she was absolutely driven to do it. And all the founders of the organisations that we've subsequently merged with. So for us, it was just the next evolutionary step. Dawn, that massive commitment to C&C in our brand, isn't there, even if it's in a slightly different way? Did you want to?
Yeah, and it is around remembering what it is you're trying to protect. And I think, Julia, you've put on this slide about identity being vanity, and I'm sure you'll expand on that, but it is going back to, like you say, the founder's intent of what was our business set up for? What are we here to do? What is it we want to protect? And it's not about almost like the kind of, I don't want to say people, because people are incredibly important through this, but it's not just necessarily about the artificial things we're trying to protect. It's the real impact. It's the real, what are we in business for? What are we here to deliver? Identity is vanity. Do you want to just touch on that point a bit? Because I think this was quite, I suppose, refreshing in terms of your thoughts and your approach around this, in terms of the discussions that we were having.
Yeah, I think, you know, you can, you know, we have this massive legacy when we lead an organisation with the rich history of C&C, and I think we can be just overprotective of it. We're here to deliver outcomes at the end of the day, and if we can do that in a better way. Our founder didn't worry about, you know, one organisation being called something else, or about working collectively with somebody else. And I think that was a really big thing for me, that, you know, we can't be held back by protecting the past and the identity. We've got to meet the needs of the future. So for me, it was all about impact and outcomes, and it was for the board and for our residents and for all our colleagues as well, who massively supported the merger. We actually achieved IIP Gold right just before we merged. So I think they were right, you know, it just demonstrates that we were, you know, colleagues were right behind this approach.
And I think it's interesting, isn't it, Julia, because it's always been said, and what we've talked about throughout is, you know, we are short-term custodians of a much longer-term business. And if you think back to the founder of C&C, you know, it's kind of still living through what the offering is for people to live well in their homes now, all these years later. So yeah, we just got a few quotes from the, you know, the consultation. As I say, people were right behind it. I think it was a really positively well
well-run consultation by our team and the Aster team as well. We've just got a really short video. Have we got time for it? Do we? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so we were just gonna, I think we're gonna do a Q&A session next, but just this is a beautiful video of the people that make up what C&C and Aster is, and the passion that they have for what they do for residents day in, day out. So it's just a short video, which I think that we're going to play now.
I think for me, mainly is the fact that we are always looking for better ways to deliver our services in care. We believe in better, not just as a team at Rathmore, but the care team as a whole and the organization. We are always finding ways of doing things better each time.
The residents are amazing, and you come every day, it's a different thing every day, but you go home feeling rewarded because you always see a smile on their face, and that makes you happy to know that you've put a smile on someone's face.
To be honest, every day is a new day, it's a different day, there's always a lot to learn, so yeah.
I think the thing that I like working with C&C is that from the start I've always seen it as a family, and I think we incorporate that within our homes and within the organisation as a whole. And the fact is that we do have a voice as staff, and I think that's really important where you work.
C&C is very people focused, and it is not just generally people, it's colleagues, it's residents, it's everyone who we interact with, from contractors to volunteers. So we are very focused on making sure that everything we do makes a difference into everyone's life.
One of the great things about working at C&C is that we're like a big family. The frontline staff are really passionate about what they do, and that filters out to the rest of us that support them with what they do.
There's always been a real focus on the tenants, residents being the centre of the work that we actually do here, and especially as we're working with older people's services, 55 plus, and obviously the care sector, then that should be the ethos of the company. And I believe that we work towards that by putting the resident at the centre.
What I want out of life is to try and make a difference, and I see that in lots of other people within the organisation, which is fantastic.
Everyone just has a friendly approach. I've had to meet everyone virtually, so everyone's been super kind and helpful and always offering with any support, so I feel, yeah.
There's lots of different areas where we pick our customers up and taking them on those journeys of selling or buying or purchasing more shares in their property, so they've got to positions where they're financially able to do so. It's actually really rewarding because you're seeing people achieve, and yes, as I say, there's lots of people in different situations. Sometimes it's sad too, but on the whole it's positive, and we're enabling people to be able to have as many options as possible to obviously progress within their lives and their home ownership.
Helping solve along the way, helping solve the national crisis of lack of affordable housing, and improving communities and improving lives.
Handing those keys over to a tenant, who could have been on the street or could have been escaping some awful situation, or they've grown and their family's grown, and that you've provided them a bigger house or in a different location. There's nothing better. In all my years of working, that was by far the best experience I've ever had in work.
I'm very looking forward to working with people across the Aster organisation and learning from them about initiatives they do, and learning about things they know how to do better than us, but as well as share my own knowledge and experience with them.
You're learning things off of different companies as well. There'll be some bits we can bring to them and some bits they can bring to us that will improve both elements.
I think it's really important, and also to make sure the other colleagues do feel included as well. Within the team we support colleagues, so I want to make sure they feel as included as everyone else would, and it's all together.
The organisation does the same thing in terms of people transformation, in terms of development, in terms of leadership capabilities. And when you bring that, when you bring where we are in our journey at C&C into Aster, I think it's just a fantastic opportunity.
The values that Aster have really do align with what we have. From reading what their 3 values, I really feel that they kind of amalgamate our own 5 values into those 3.
We are here to serve our customers, to give our customers exactly what they need. We've both got that drive, both got that vision to do that. So actually the primary goal is to work together in the best way to do that, to work across teams, to work as a cohesive team, to ultimately enjoy ourselves and enjoy what we're doing.
I have this great feeling. I'm positive, I'm optimistic. I think my expectations are quite high. The reason is that I feel that we will have a greater chance of developing as a team, and that just gives me the oomph, right, and the optimism to say this is the best thing that we could do.
Well, that's great. Thanks ever so much for sharing that. And what follows on a really great presentation from Julia. Actually, it's more of a conversation than a presentation, Julia and Dawn. So thank you, and Adam behind the scenes. I'm conscious we've got just over 10 minutes or so for Q&A, and there's been some really fantastic conversations both in the chat box as well as in the Q&A box. And some of those are very much around better understanding about the tech and some of the tech solutions, and others are about sort of other aspects about engaging and things. But I just wanted to say my own experience of both organisations is that the culture isn't just driven by the leaders and the staff. It's also about that engagement and involvement of residents. And I think Julia and Dawn, you talked about co-production and co-designing some of the solutions, and I was very impressed by how you've put the central focus on that, whether it's a digital citizen or citizenship per se to challenge ageing. So I really welcomed your contribution this afternoon. Now, as I say, we've got a series of questions in the chat box and in the Q&A box. And some of these have been upvoted. So I'm just wondering if I can sort of just run through a few of these to start off with, and if we have more time, we'll go through the lot. I think this is very much looks at some of the tech aspects from Maria Bell. What do you consider to be the most important housing and care tech solution developments in regards to improving the well-being of your residents and tenants? I don't know if that's for you initially, Julia.
Yeah, the internet.
Yeah.
Access to the internet. Like, it's just the most basic thing, isn't it? So many people don't have access to the internet. So that's been a huge focus for us. Only once you've got access to the internet can you start to play with other things. And then some people are just too, we've just found it just too anxious to make that step if we make it available. So there's work that we've done already, and then there's work that we will plan in. We haven't actually nailed that work because the development of the strategy is not finished yet. But the work that combined we're doing already is a kind of continuum, if you like, of being able to connect from a device in your home in an appropriate way that is relevant to your needs. And that might be full smart home, voice control, adaptive, door entry, what have you, right through to just a simple, I guess what we would do now is a pendant alarm. That's going to change up, isn't it, as the tech starts to get much more sophisticated. And then linking with sensors. So the sensors we've been installing in some of our schemes don't just monitor movement and things like that, but actually create alerts for scheme staff if the room is beyond parameters of heat or cold, for instance, or damp, or all of those things that can happen in a really invisible way without you realizing. and then connecting all of that up through into your hub system. So you've got a fully integrated service that you can offer out into the community, so people can be almost getting a service from a hub. Well, we've been talking about this for years, but in a tech way that actually could be a physical contact or a real person as well. And we've been having some really interesting discussions around, you know, visibility through your device, right through to getting help from a call centre, but actually have that being a video call. So I think everything's up in the air, isn't it? Everything's on the table until we do this agile development and take something off the table.
And I think, Julia, on that one as well, I suppose the internet and that access in a digital environment as well has never been more key than it was throughout the pandemic as well. You know, that ability to connect with people that may not have been present in person centered, but that technology enabling that stuff to happen, you know, even down to access with people in hospitals and all of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, through the pandemic, we were just giving out devices just to keep people connected. You know, you can get them pretty cheaply, to be honest with you. And, you know, it's not the hardware, but it's what person does when they got the device. If they've got no internet, same thing, you can't connect. So it's like a basic fundamental building block of digital citizenship. And then there's the sort of skill development, which will come on top of that. But yeah.
Yeah, and what for me it feels like is that, and you mentioned the TAPPI inquiry that we held last year, and thanks ever so much for being on that panel, is that some of the learning from that is also a way that you can embed this into practice, because it's not just about the care and the building technology and sort of building, you know, how it supports housing management or care and support. What I think both of you say, it's about digital enablement, which enables people both to connect, but also to lead and have lifestyle opportunities as well. So I think one of the things that came strongly from me from both organizations during lockdown in particular was how that digital connectivity enabled people to play, to learn, to create creative environments, you know, so and address things like loneliness and isolation in particular.
Yeah, I mean, just another example, which isn't the tech itself, it's a service, but we transitioned all of our community contact activities, engagement. We do tons and tons of stuff for residents, which was all in person, but we transitioned it all online. Adam will probably remind me of how many actual activities we had out there. Of course, once you've gone digital, you can just scale that up. You know, you can just scale that up so that loads of people can contact you, and loads of people can develop the alumni or the interest groups, and I think there's still quite a bit of work to do on that. But yeah, I'm excited about how efficient that could be.
There's another question which is a slightly different take. It's more coming back to the points both of you raised about the workforce. There's actually an anonymous attendee, but are you able to share anything about your workforce strategy? How are you ensuring you recruit and retain the right staff with the right values and skills to deliver upon your strategic objectives?
Well, the values of an individual are, as we all know in this space, the most important thing. And you can teach people skills, but you can't, you just need the right people in working in this sector. And then we have to free them up and get out the way so that they can do the best work. And I think the beautiful thing about Aster is that they've already, I mean, Dawn will talk more than I can about Aster's approach to people. It's very forward thinking, incredibly forward thinking around flexibility of employment, about trust, and about accountability. So be looking for all of those things. And then I think, which we're in the development of this strategic plan now, because we've only just merged, you know, we're already on that journey, but the discussions so far have just been brilliant around, well, you know, people might not want to retire, they might not want to leave work, they shouldn't be pushed out of the workforce just because of their age, or because actually end up with responsibilities that don't fit in with work, and how we can shape a workforce that can sustain itself. And actually, you know, in supporting an aging population, actually they're priceless workers that we tend to lose too quickly. So very much about retaining them in the workforce and flexibility.
Yeah, just touching on that workforce, Julia, we talking about, you know, we talk about those different generations of workforce, but there'll be those people that are, I suppose, no longer are able to go out and do the works in the home. But when you use technology to enable you to, I suppose, someone else back in, I don't know, like this, in your home environment, but with some video looking at what the problem is from, say, an apprentice or something like that, and that ability to be able to teach, coach, give over your knowledge from all the years that you've experienced certain problems along the way, means you can still play a very active part in terms of delivery of services to customers.
I'm going to, there are a couple of really questions that haven't been upvoted, but I think they're really very relevant. And I suppose you started touching us in your conversation about, you know, what are the barriers and challenges to introducing tech? And another question about how you're responding to the digital switchover. Do either of you have an opportunity just to give us some insights on that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think both organisations had slightly different plans actually about how we respond to the digital switchover, but both were had very active plans and resources within our financial plans to respond to that. I think it's created some really good conversations to actually share those different approaches. And again, we just need to learn that, but we're coming at the same sort of thing, but in a different way. So I think, yeah, watch this space. We'll let you know on that one.
Brilliant. Well, look, the other thing I want to just sort of conclude on is that we've had several questions from Jane Lawson in the chat box and the Q&A box. And while we probably don't have time to go into them, I know that Jane, I think, works for 13 Group, who've also been going along this journey. So one of the beauties about the HousingLIN is our opportunities to share the learning, how different organisations. So I'd welcome an opportunity to come back to you perhaps in September when you've developed a little bit more of your strategy, Dawn and Julia, and we can ask Jane and her colleagues, Michelle and others, to come and perhaps have a joint happy hour to see how you both have progressed, one in the northeast and one in London and the southwest.
Did you know, I was at the 13 session. I was just it was such a brilliant session. So thank you for that. It was really motivating. I completely agree. It's not age, it's not 55, it's not old people. It's just about respecting people as they are and making sure they can access the right services at the right time, and that the homes that they're living in are fit for purpose, really. And I think it just opens a lid when you stop talking about old people or stop talking about the age agenda and just start talking about people as people. And you know, people having the right to live their best life, I think.
Dawn, final words to you. Any final concluding comments that you'd like to share?
No, just really a big thank you for welcoming us along, and also the opportunity for, like you say, coming back in September and having that, I suppose, almost that collaborative approach with others as well would be great. It'd be great to see how the journey progresses and also learn from others as well. So yeah, thank you for kind of throwing that in at the end there, Jeremy, and giving that as an offer.
Yeah, well, you know, I think one of the things that we really, our ethos is around learning improvement, and we very much hope that, you know, we can both, I'm sure a lot of people have picked up some real nuggets from you this afternoon. So on behalf of the HousingLIN, thanks ever so much for your contributions. It only leads me to really to bring this to an end, to say that if you wish to participate or want to sort of have an opportunity to share your ideas at a future HousingLIN Happy Hour, please do contact us on the email address shown at the moment. We also welcome future blogs and thought leadership and case studies so that we can share those across our wide and diverse membership. I also just wanted to pick out issues around fire safety and protection. Julie, you mentioned that as part of your strategy. We actually have a session on the 5th of April, which is our next Happy Hour session, looking at the impact of fire safety and protection and how a variety of RPs and architects are looking at this in relation to extra care housing. So if you haven't signed up for that, please do that. And if you'd like to have a conversation with the HousingLIN, how we can help you, please do visit our web pages and emails and drop us a line. And we look forward to having a future conversation with you. So without further ado, can I once again thank Dawn and Julie for your excellent contributions, and the team behind the scenes, both at C&C and Sally, who there she is, for supporting us and making this event really run so smoothly. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thanks all.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.